So we have a great speaker tonight, our very own chaplain, Father James. So we have 3 fun facts about Father James. Number 1, he once jumped onto a moving train in Assisi and almost died. Thankfully, he's still here. Number 2, he had a life-changing conversation with John Paul II. One-on-one, people, one-on-one. And third, he witnessed a Eucharistic miracle. Now please give a round of applause for our very own chaplain, Father James.
Thank you. How's everyone tonight? Good? Yeah. Can I get up here? All right, so you guys have been seeing me limping around a bit. I have to tell you, I hurt myself dancing. I never knew I would say that as a priest, but the other day we're here, and so I had, let me see if I can do it on the other leg. I had to learn how to do that stanky thing. I'm bringing stanky back. All right, so here I am. And because of that, I have to go to the hospital tomorrow. I'm at the doctor tomorrow because I can't walk. It's awesome for me to be here. For those of you that are new, so am I, but for those of you that are new, I've done the first TNS talk quite a few times over the years. And every time that I've come, Father Peter always would stand back there and they always gave this look like, ooh, like, because once in a while I'd get like really close to like something, don't say it, and then I wouldn't say it now, so hopefully I won't tonight. But he texted me today, and for all of you who are returning and know Father Peter, he wanted me to give you his love and to say that things are going really well. And I think it's safe to say, I'm going to say this because you can't tell him that Matthew 25 this week at Mass is going to James Madison's Catholic chaplaincy so that we can help him out a little. So at Mass, if you guys want to, during the collection, you want to drop a couple of bucks in, it's going to go to him, okay? So that percentage is going to go to him, which I think is going to be awesome. So thank you. So Catholics are insane, okay? We're completely weird. Yeah. Are there any people here who are not Catholic? Yeah, okay, a couple of people, good. So you guys might get it. And how many converts here? How many people who were once not? Okay, a couple of people, very good. I have noticed this over time, the number of things that we do that are just incredibly strange. For instance, there was someone had stopped by a couple of days ago, and something they were like, what the hell is going on? They said they had never been to a Catholic Mass before, and they were like, it's so weird. What's going on here? And I was thinking about that, even just a belief in God is odd today for a lot of people. A belief that God became a man is even weirder. That he was born of a virgin, people are like, what? It starts getting a little weirder. That we eat his flesh and drink his blood, and people are like, when you keep going, you're like, I was lost. You lost me at the virgin part. What? And then it's just keep going in. And then when they meet priests, it's even weirder. Right? I love going to the mall. I have to go to the mall regularly. Because when I go to the mall, I always make sure I'm dressed up like this. Right? No shorts and t-shirt at the mall. I love going. And even in other countries, it's even greater. But I go up to Tyson's once in a while, and the looks you get, some looks are like, oh, you can't have sex? It's like this. I hope you're okay. I was once in a restaurant in Ireland, and these couple of 15, 16-year-old guys were sitting there, and they said, I walked by and they're like, hey, Father, what's it like not to have sex? And I looked at him and I go, you tell me. And there's that line, John, it's like getting right there. Right now. And then they give you this look, like they always give you. It's like, or the other look is like, while I'm walking by, like I'm gonna somehow send them to hell. Sometimes you want to do that. Just look at me going. Well, so not long ago I was walking in the, you go to the mall, you got to go to the department stores a lot of times, and I was walking in the Macy's. And of course, no matter what entrance I go into in any mall, it's always going to be like the lingerie or something. It's like you're walking in, oh, not this entrance. Can I choose socks? So I'm walking in, and there was this family walking in, and there was one of the, the handicap bumper that opens the door. And so I was just sitting there, and I was like, and I saw the family walking, and Mom had a stroller, so I just go like this, like, go ahead, and I bumped the thing with my hip, and as I did it, the door opened, and the little boy was like, and now for my next trick. They were, so the looks you get, but we're weird. And then there's even the more, then there's even the more esoteric stuff or things like the way we at Mass, like Catholic aerobics. Sitting and standing and kneeling and kneeling and standing and sitting and kneeling. It's like Simon Says for some people. It's hysterical. And what is it about us that we can't put the kneelers down? Everyone's like, BAM! Like, smashed it. I'm like, is your life that angry? Just take it, just put it down like that. No. But, and then there's other things like the stigmata. People say, why did Padre Pio, why were his hands bleeding? I don't know, right? It's because God wants to show, but things like that, they can be odd to people. Exorcisms, everybody's always fascinated about the devil. No matter what, no matter who gets possessed, they always come to the priest, right? It's just bring them to the priest. And to see that is really trippy, right? But that freaks people out. They don't know why, because it's weird. That the fact that the spiritual pierces into the world, and that we see it. And I think that's something that's like a hallmark of a Catholic mentality. We have kind of like an optic, if you will. It's like a lens that's placed over our eyes where we see in a very particular, in a very physical, in a very real way, the divine piercing through the human. Think about the Eucharist. I mean, how weird is it if you don't know what's going on or what we believe, and you go in and everyone's kneeling in front of a piece of bread? It's just weird. And yet, there's something that pierces into our reality, grabs us, transforms us, and we leave never the same. You heard one of the odd facts about Cami and Zinjan came up and started like, tell us 3 weird things about you. I'm like, but then, so one of them was this Eucharistic Miracle I witnessed, which was really amazing. Truly miraculous. I was at World Youth Day in Australia, and which was awesome, because Australia's awesome. Australia's like America with cooler accents. And it was just amazing. So we're on this giant football field. There's 500,000 people there, or airport, something like that. It was a big field. And there was Mass, and I said Mass with Pope Benedict, and then it was time for communion. And they gave me a ciborium, which is the thing that we keep the host in, a little bit bigger than the one that you saw me have today. And I was sent down. There was this little man there with an umbrella. Yeah, g'day, Father, come with me. And we're just like wading through the sea of people. And he's this little man, he's like, "Oi, everybody, move!" in the middle of the Mass. And so I get to a spot, and he just says, "Yeah, right here, you just give out communion." I'm like, "Is there a line?" He looks, he goes, "You're an American, aren't you?" And I guess there's no line. So people are like leaning over, like, "Give me Jesus." For 20 minutes, I gave out communion. Body Christ, body Christ, body Christ. And there's some people that like want an extra. You're like, "What? No, go." There's something chaotic about Christianity. And so like the body of Christ, the body of Christ. So I'm getting, and I can look down at the ciborium, it's starting to get a little empty. And I look down again, it's completely full again. I'm like, what? Somebody praise. And I keep giving it out. And so when I went back to the Pope, when I went back to the altar, it was still completely full. And 20 minutes I gave out communion. Still, and I'm like, now this time I'm not worried about, the icebreaker going through like, yeah, everybody move. It was now I'm like, Jesus. And it's just like, this is amazing. When I brought it back, I handed it to one of the masters of ceremonies who was there collecting the score, and he looked and he goes, you too, huh? like this happens every day in Australia. Yeah, they apparently had like bags and bags full of consecrated hosts that they had to go bring to local churches because they, like all the ciboria, were being filled up again. We're weird. Like that kind of stuff doesn't happen, It flabbergasts, that's a big word, I love that word. Flabbergasts us, it transforms us, it shakes us that we are abnormal. And that's good. And that's really what I want to talk about tonight. So we advertised on Facebook, New Beginnings or something is the title of the talk. How do I begin? How do I start everything? By recognizing the truth, by recognizing reality. And what's our reality? Our reality is that we are abnormal in the mentality or the mind of worldliness. If we deny that and try to fit in, it doesn't work. Now, does that mean that we're going to, that we're kind of these odd ducks? No. I mean, we are deep incursion forces. Everywhere you are, the church is. Everywhere I am, Jesus Christ is. Everywhere you are, Jesus Christ is. Just a little while ago, up in the Mass, we received God himself into our body, so when we walk somewhere, Jesus Christ walks with us. Our bodies are now united. We go to the tabernacle, we see, in the church, we believe that Jesus is present there because he doesn't want to leave us. But he's also present here. He's present there in you. Which means that he wasn't a man that lived 2,000 years ago and had neat things to say. He is the eternal God that radically transforms the world through you and in you and with you. That's weird to a worldly mind. And it's like there's a crazy, exciting nature to our belief that makes life worth living, that makes it exciting. Because you and I are not tame. Think on that. We're not tame. That there's something wild about us. And you look at the lives of the saints, and it's very much like that. I remember some years ago, maybe some of you have heard this story, because some of you have known me for years, but some years ago, when I worked for the circus in New York, I had an opportunity. I worked for Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. And I had an opportunity to live on the circus train. So Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus has a mile-long train. And there's, green alligators and long-necked geese, some humpty-back camels and some chimpanzees, some cats and rats and elephants, and sure as you're born. We don't have any unicorns. So, but there were elephants, but there was some crazy, animals living on the train. Big animals, like lions and tigers and bears. There you go. Thank you. So I got to live on the train. I got to live in the clown car, which was very fun. And it was kind of like it was a train car full of small little rooms of abnormal people, right? And it was fun. And they were all mostly. I was 24 at the time, I think, and they were all about your age. Most of the clowns were in their early 20s or 19, 18, that kind of thing, because they were very athletic. Anyway, so I'm living there, we're having a good time, we're partying on the circus train, we're going to the desert, all these things. Well, there was this another Australian lion trainer who was living on the train, and one of the reasons I was there is because they wanted to give me an experience of circus life so I could sell it to people. And so the guy knocks on my door. I open slide the door. Yeah, And he had this big scar on his face. So like clearly at one point he was not a successful lion trainer. And he had this big scar and he said, yeah, James, you'll have to feed the lions. And I'm like, yeah. All right. And in the back of my head I'm hearing, dun, 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 dun. Let's do it. So we go and I'm standing there and he hands me a harness. And I'm like, what's the harness for? Yeah, so you got to be outside of the train in order to feed the lions. And I'm like, it's moving. Yeah, I mean that's the idea. So you've got to like lock yourself into the car, and then you go down and you have to hang off the train. And I'm like, while it's moving. Yeah, it's pretty safe. And I'm like, pretty safe? I'm like, why not? I'll do it. Better ways to, there's lesser ways to die. Okay. So I put on this harness, I slip it on, and you gotta buckle, and then there's two hooks hanging off the back of the harness. And I'm like, what's that for? And he's like, for this. And he holds up legs of a former animal, right? And I'm like, so what do I do this? Yeah, it's really easy. What you do is you get along the train and you've got to kick the door latch and it'll fly up and then you just hand the meat to the lion. And I'm like, there's the doors open. What's protecting me? Nothing. Okay, why not, right? So I'm going along, so I latch into the door, and you just click in and then lean back. And I have meat hanging from my rear end. And I'm going along the train, it's amazing, I'm still picturing this. And there's things hitting my rear end, which are called tree branches because we're going by them. And I'm like, I'm gonna die, this is it, I'm dead. And because it was a great idea when I said yes, right? But when you're there and you're like, holy God, what am I doing? And as I go, I'm probably like 5 feet away and I hear, hey, mate, remember, they're not tame, they're trained. And I'm like, yeah, thanks. What does that mean? I don't know. Train, tame, okay. So I'm going along and I kick the latch of the first one and it flies up and it flies up this much, like 3 feet a much. Like he could sneak out, or she, actually these are all female lions, which are bigger than male lions and like much bigger. And so I hand the first piece of meat and they just take it to their mouth. They just kind of take it in and gnawing on it, and you're like, like leaning against the thing, closing it. Then I go to the next one, because I had to keep going back and forth. There was 18 of them. And 18 lines. And I'm going, so I go to the second one, and I kick it, and as I kick it, my foot misses this thing, and I fall. I can't do it because I'm not wearing a harness. And I fall, and I'm face to face with a lion. This face. This is a true story. I'm not making this up. And I'm face to face, and I can feel her breath. And I'm like, absolutely beautiful. I mean, the lion, the eyes of a lion are, they're freaking scary, but they're beautiful. And her teeth are like, big. So I'm looking at her, I'm just like, and my feet are hitting the like on the ground, dangling from the train, and I can feel like the brush hitting my feet, and I'm just dangling there, and I go, and I just hands the meat, and she just looks at me, takes her little paw, not big paw, and just starts gnawing on it, and I'm like, click, and this sense of relief, staring face to face with death. I'm like, Daniel, help me, Daniel, help me, Daniel, help me. Little biblical reference from the priest. And it was amazing. It was amazing. But I figured out finally what this bloke was telling me. They're trained. They're not tamed. And I think we can learn something from him. You and I, as Christians in the world, are trained, but we're not tamed. Our very presence will make a mess of things. Just being in the world, because we bring the mystery we've received into the middle of the world, we're weird to the world because we're not dulled by it. We're not worn down by it if we really live the passion of it. If you think about it, like with the saints, I mean, the most convincing aspects of our faith, one of the most, Pope Benedict XVI said, the two most convincing aspects of the faith are her art and the lives of the saints. And you might say, like, what? I don't know how many of you ever had the experience of going to St. Peter's or somewhere like that, and you walk in. I hope all of you had that experience, and I'm certainly going to give you the opportunity to have it when we go to Rome at some point. But, yes, it will be awesome. But when you walk into St. Peter's, it's like you can't breathe right. And it's not because of the incense. It's like, it's really funny, like Catholics with the incense thing. It's like, it's in my face. I'm dying and I'm still doing it. Stop coughing. Sometimes I'll walk into the church with nothing in the little thermal. Nothing. No charcoal, no incense. I'll walk in and you hear the person in the background going, and you're like, got you. But when you walk into St. Peter's, you're amazed at the size of the place, you're amazed at the beauty of the place, but also amazed that someone or many ones would do that for God. Because if you go to the roof of St. Peter's, there are sculptures that are carved up there no one sees. That means someone did that art 500 years ago, and they did it for God. That the world just doesn't get that. No one sees it. Why do it? Why even bother? It's because it's amazing. It's otherworldly. And also the lives of the saints. This weekend, I cannot wait, is the canonization of Mother Theresa. Now, I don't know about you, but I love Mother Teresa. Because Mother Teresa is one tough cookie. She was not like a, hello, how are you? No, she was tough. And her sisters are tough as well. I remember my first morning of being a priest, I got a phone call. Hello, Father James. I'm like, hello, who is this? This is Sister Clovis of the Missionaries of Charity. I'm like, hello, sister, how are you? I am good. Father, Jesus needs you. And what does Jesus need, sister? You will be here at 6:30 in the morning to say Mass for us tomorrow. I'm like, okay. Okay, that Mother Teresa was like that. What would give this small woman the boldness? It's a great story. Mother Teresa is at a Knights of Columbus gala event. Big event. All these like well-heeled knights are there, and all these things. Luscious table spreads, the food. The knights know how to party. They know how to party. She gets up at the podium. She looks out at the podium, and she's like, the podium's like up here. She looks out and she goes, "You are all hypocrites." And she sat down. And they were spending all the money and stuff. And then, you know what they did? They gave her a standing ovation for 5 minutes. Who has the guts to stand up in front of someone, call them hypocrites, and then they give her a standing ovation? It's the gutsiness of living the reality of our faith. Those things that are just, they flabbergast us. They take our breath away. Because when God pierces into our reality, when He enters into our life, His presence is so intense that you can't ignore it. You can deny it. You can hate it. But you can't ignore it. That's why 2,000 years later, Jesus Christ is as controversial in His presence, both in the world and through you and I, and in His church, than He has ever been. that controversy is one that clashes, it bashes up against the world. When Jesus turns to Peter and he says, Peter, you are rock, and on this rock I will build my church. Well, he says, Simon, you are rock. He renames him. We rename people. We rename people according to their abilities sometimes. And he names him. He was the rock. And the gates of hell shall not prevail against my church. But it's interesting when you read it in the Greek. And if you ever take Greek or can learn a little bit of it, it's really fascinating because certain words mean something in Greek that they just can't translate in English. And when Jesus says, you are the rock, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against her, the words he's using are not one of defense. Like, the world's going to beat on the church, and the church is like, okay, but we'll be strong. No. He's saying that the church will plow into those waves like a ship and bash them to pieces. It's offensive line language he's using. Meaning that we are made to confront the lies of the world and to bring the good into the middle of the world. You look at the gospel today at the Mass, the calling of St. Peter and the calling of all of them fishing. What would make a man drop Peter had a successful business. The fishing business of Peter and Andrew and James and John were successful. As a matter of fact, if you notice at the end of the Gospel of John, it says that the beloved disciple was in the courtyard of the high priest. Now, how do you get into the courtyard of the high priest? You have to know people. And most scripture scholars would say that the reason was because John and Peter probably supplied the fish for the high priest. That they were workmen that were able to bring stuff in, and that's why they were there. That's why Peter's there and he's warming his hands. That was not the first time Peter warmed his hands in the courtyard of the high priest. But there was something that had changed in him because he had encountered the answer to his question, the answer of his life. And he was willing to drop everything. You look at John the Baptist is preaching and he points to Jesus and he says, "Behold the Lamb of God. Behold him who takes away the sins of the world." And John and Andrew are like, "What? Who? That?" And they run to him. And you imagine that moment, that encounter, when Jesus turns to them and says, "What do you seek? What are you looking for?" And that's the question. The question is not to be or not to be. The question is, what are you looking for? What is the question of your heart, of your life? What answer in life are you looking for? That you keep searching in all these other places and all these other activities and things. And we do it. I did it. I tried to do it in my major. That didn't work. It didn't fulfill me. I tried to do it in my business and work. That didn't fulfill me. I remember I was in a nightclub in New York City, and it was like nice nightclub. It was because the only nightclubs worth going to are the ones that aren't advertised. And I found out about it through some, people in the entertainment world. And so we went, and it was like, sexy time. I mean, nice rope, the velvet rope lines, and you need to be on the guest list, and and all the beautiful people are there, and all the people that want to be beautiful people are there. And they're all there, and you walk up and you tell the bouncer, and you're with people, and the bouncer's like, "Come on in," and you go in. I remember standing there, and I was just like, I'm dancing, I'm having a martini, and that was the kind of music, I don't know what I was listening to. And I remember turning and looking at some friends, and then looking at my drink and kind of going. And I put my drink down on the cocktail table, and I walked out, and I started walking across the street. And my friend ran out, and he was like, "Dude, what's wrong?" And I said, "It's the same thing. It's the same music, the same drinks, the same people, the same lame conversations, it's same. Is this all there is?" I said, "We make all this money. Is this all there is?" And he was like, "Why aren't you happy? This is fun." I'm like, "If it's fun, go ahead." But it wasn't fun to me anymore. And I would bet that perhaps maybe we've encountered those moments in our life where we've kind of run up against it and said, what's offered to me is not answering the need. And maybe we've been like anesthetizing ourselves over and over, trying to numb the desire. But the fact is that does it answer it? Like, I remember, like going off to college, is the college life. So many people go, I just want to live the college life. What does that mean? You want to study? No. You are aware that you're paying $40,000 a year. Or this guy was at the time. You're smarter than that. And I was like, that's an expensive party. And I said, but is it exciting? I mean, there's just so many times people are like, dude, man, last night was wild, wasn't it? It was awesome. No, I was cleaning up your pew. And I carried you home. No, it was awesome. I'm like, okay. I mean, there's just so many times that can happen, right? There's just so many hookups that can happen. There's just so many. Why? Because it doesn't get any better. And that's what the world offers. And in effect, what happens is we become very dull. We become muggles. It's like, we lose the magic. Why are the Harry Potter movies and books so popular? Why was the Lord of the Rings so popular? Why was Narnia so popular for little kids? Why is Percy Jackson and Star Wars and all those things and all that stuff? Why? Because we all know that there is more. That there is something magical about life. That there's something enchanted about it. That there's something beyond the real that's more real. That's what J.R.R. Tolkien said. When Tolkien wrote The Lord of the Rings, he said, I'm writing this to show the imagination. He said it was the fairy story. It was the imagination of a Christian. Because we can see behind the mundane and see the magical. We can see a sacramental reality. That through the external, something deeper and more profound and amazing that isn't boring is there. And that's what happens is when we don't have that, or when we numb ourselves to it, that's when we become bored. And we start to despair and lose hope. I bet you, I don't know about you, but there's a lot of people losing hope today. Especially the elections are going on. Right. How many people over the age of 45, you hear them your parents it's all going to crap. Everything. We're going to lose all our rights. We're going to lose everything. It's going to be like Nazi Germany. Why? Well, if Trump wins, it'll be like Nazi Germany. How about if Hillary wins? It'll be like Nazi Germany. It's like, man, they just can't get a break anywhere. I mean, the fact is that people are scaring us to believe that hope is gone. That there's nothing to live for anymore. That life is boring. Hebrews 12:3. Consider how he endured such opposition from sinners in order that you may not grow weary and lose heart. Do not grow weary and lose heart. What can we do this year? What can we do this year to make sure that you and I do not lose heart? Is to feed that sacramental vision, that reality, to feed on the awesomeness and the magic and the beauty of what it means to live a full, passionate, real, not tame Christian life. Because the minute we become tame, we sulk. And I remember the lions that looked like they lost heart. They would sit in the back and they'd just kind of be lame. I remember there was one particular male lion who just looked like he lost steam. And the poor guy, finally, they took him off the show. They let him go run wild on the preserve. And apparently, life came back to him. We have to run wild. And our Holy Fathers, and people don't understand what the Pope said. Pope Francis, at the First World Youth Day, he reiterated at the last World Youth Day. He said, go out and make a mess. Now, for Americans, they're like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. Make a mess. I don't know what it means. It means be a theological crackpot. I don't understand what that means. But you know what? People in Argentina understood it because I forget the word he used. My Spanish is pretty pathetic.
Relajo.
What?
Relajo.
Un lío. Okay.
Oh, lío.
Okay. So basically, what does he mean by this? This is what happens when we celebrate. When you celebrate at the soccer game, you celebrate at Easter. What do? You go out in the street and you make noise. Well, what is it that we need to do? We need to go out into the street and make noise. Sometimes we'll look a little weird. No, it doesn't mean going around going, do you believe in Jesus? Come on now! No, it because that's weird, right? But it means going out and saying what we believe. It means go out and don't be afraid to have power. The power of Jesus Christ. Don't be afraid to go out and be unpredictable and not boring. Don't be afraid to go out and be creative and to not settle with the status quo, which rips our joy out of us, so that we'll no longer be lame, so that we'll be like the saints, like St. Patrick. I mean, we celebrate every year. It makes me laugh. St. Patrick was known for his temperance. What do we do on St. Patrick's Day? St. Valentine was known for his chastity. St. Nicholas was known for his poverty and self-giving generosity. You know, all these things, like the world just kind of wants to pervert those images, but the fact is that what was it about these great saints? Like St. Patrick, was a slave in Ireland, a slave until he was about 16, escaped the Celts, returned to England, to his family, and then suddenly turned around after he had been fed by the gospel and returns to Ireland. And when he got there, he knew where things were. This King Lothar, I think his name was, or something like that. My Gaelic is non-existent. And he goes and he says, you know what? Every year on a feast of spring, where they would light the spring fire to the gods of nature, the king would make a proclamation that no fire could be lit anywhere in the realm until the fire was lit by the king and the celebration of the Druids took place. So Patrick looks over on the other hill, no fire, lights his own. Lights his own fire. It was the Easter fire, it was the Paschal fire. The king's men come, they all, them coming in their kilts, and they come and they take Patrick and they beat him, and they take Patrick and Brendan and all the others that were with him, they bring him back to the king. The king was so impressed that Patrick had such guts, that he was so unpredictable, that the king and the entire tribe converted. And that's why Ireland's Catholic, or was. They need it again, right? And that's what we need. And we need those guts. We need the guts of Theresa of Avila. We need the guts of Catherine of Siena, who was so tough. She was like telling the Pope what to do. She's like, you need to go back to Rome. You need to leave Avignon and go back to Rome. And you need to settle the lack of peace here. She was amazing. Mother Teresa. My friends, be amazing this year. My friends, if we could do anything in this, and I'm so happy to be here, if we can do anything, let's be unpredictable in the way we go out and bring that imagination that is real to people. I leave you with this quote. It doesn't come from me. It doesn't come from the gospel. You might know where it comes from. Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs and square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. But the only thing you can't do is ignore them. Because they change things, they push the human race forward, and while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. Let's be crazy this year. Let's change this campus. I want to build a new building because this one will be too small to fit people. I hope we can do it next year. Let's rock. Thank you.